Welcome everyone to Breaking Big Blue. I'm your host Jordan Ron on ESPN, ESPN.com. Giants reporter back after a few weeks off, all tanned up, ready to go. That's because this is the pre-training camp edition. Pre-training camp episode. Take the golf clubs, put them in the closet, put away the beach chairs. That portion of the summer is over for the New York Giants, and for me as well. Training camp begins. Veterans report today. Today is Tuesday, the 22nd. Tomorrow, first practice, Wednesday, the 23rd. You can actually still get, I know people were up in arms, trying to get training camp tickets right away. The system, they were having problems. You go on, I went on right before I started taping this. You can get tickets to a variety of dates still available. Some of them are sold out. Weekends, the joint practice, those are a little more harder to get, but still, there'll be plenty of people who will have to back out because they're free tickets, right, to the general public. So you could just get tickets and then make a decision later on, I cannot make it. So even if you got squeezed out of the date that you wanted, you probably can find tickets. If you reach out to the right people, there'll be tickets coming available. Maybe the Giants will reopen it at some point on even the dates that are sold out. There are tickets that you could probably get your hands on for the dates that you want for training camp. It's usually not completely packed and sold out at Giants training camp. That's just the reality of the situation the past however many years. So if you want to make it out there, Quest Diagnostics Training Center in East Rutherford, you probably can make it happen. License plate guy, he always does a good job brokering tickets to people, people who can't go, getting them into the hands of people that can go. So he's a good guy to reach out to if you're looking for tickets for a specific date. I'll also be willing to help if anyone wants to reach out specifically, say, I really want to go to this date. We could probably find you tickets to that date. So with that being said, you're going to be out there. You're going to be watching from a distance, whatever it may be. What is it that is going to attract our attention this summer? And I'm just going to, let me go over the two primary biggest things with the Giants to watch this summer. And then we'll later on in the show, we'll get to the position battles that I believe are out there this summer, mostly starting positions, but we'll also get a little bit on some backup and other spots out there. So the number one thing, we're going to sit here and we're going to be talking about training camp this season, throughout the year. How does Jackson Dart look, right? He's the rookie. He's the first round pick. When's he going to play? And that's not going to stop. That's going to go until Jackson Dart is in the game and he's playing and starting for the Giants. That's the reality of the situation. He's a rookie quarterback. He's a first round pick. He's the future. They drafted him to be their future. So it's only a matter of time. Now, Jackson Dart does have an opportunity here to really open eyes this summer. And if he plays off the charts, it probably changes the situation. But the reality is, Russell Wilson's going to start week 1 for the New York Giants, barring something crazy happening. That something crazy being, he gets banged up like last year. We heard his calf he had some sort of leg injury in Pittsburgh, had to miss the early part of the season. Justin Fields then stepped into that starting role. That's an opportunity. Even in that situation, though, I think the way the Giants are currently constituted, they would likely go to Jameis Winston at that point. But if Jackson Dart, again, opens eyes, plays amazing, that could change. So the other thing is we're going to go, and he's going to have some good days and bad days you're going to hear. And this is just the reality of the situation of where we are in regards to coverage, media, hype, all that. There'll be days where Jackson Dart, and, we'll be putting out numbers of completions and interceptions. And remember, it's training camp. He can't get hit. A lot of times it's 7-on-7. Sometimes even 11v11. Sometimes they're working on certain things, trying to get the ball downfield, play action. Sometimes it's red zone period, so he's going to end up with 5 touchdowns. You're like, oh, what a day, 5 touchdown passes. If every single pass you throw, this isn't just Jackson Dart, it's every quarterback, is from the red zone, you should throw a bunch of touchdown passes. If you're throwing every single pass from the 5-yard line, you should have a lot of touchdown passes. So, but people will get hyped. They'll go, one day Jackson Dart will be the greatest quarterback alive. when he has a good day and good stats, the next day he'll be overrated, overhyped, and a scrub. So get ready for that. It'll be all over the map depending on how the day goes. But the reality is he's a rookie quarterback. He's going to have some good days. He's going to have some bad days. Let's see if he could stack together more good days. I think that's what you're looking for here. You're looking for more positives than you are negatives. And you're looking to see how he performs in the preseason. That'll be kind of big. First game, Buffalo, be one to watch. Because you're like, okay, what are we going to see from Jackson Dart? The rookie first-round pick. When the lights are on. When he's under pressure. When the opposition can actually hit him. Right? Because remember, training camp, quarterbacks are wearing those red jerseys. Can't touch them. You can't even really bump into them. You go near them and you get in trouble. So it's set up for them to succeed, right? In comparison to real live game action. Much different scenario. But it will be interesting to see how he grows. Talking about Jackson Dart. How he learns. How his skills translate to the NFL. We saw a little bit of that in the spring. There was a lot of him moving around, running, but also hopefully he learned from the spring, because there were times in the spring where he was moving around, running, trying to make plays, and there were times where he did that successfully. There were also times where he did that and it turned into turnovers and interceptions. Like, you have to learn, hey, I can't make certain throws in the NFL. This is a different beast. So that's going to be the number one thing we're watching this summer. The growth of Jackson Dart, right? How he's doing on a daily basis. How can he string together 2 or 3 good, solid days in a row? I think, also we'll be keeping an eye on this, but I think he'll probably be working primarily with the second team. Russell Wilson in the spring, every rep he took was with the first team offense, with the starters. Jackson Dart, he would squeeze in a first team rep every once in a while. Very minimal, but every once in a while. Jameis Winston also. Squeeze in a few first team reps, but not a lot. Those are primarily going to go to Russell Wilson. If at any point in the summer, Jackson Dart all of a sudden is taking a significant number more first team reps, that will be notable. Not whether he sneaks 1 or 2 in here or there. If he's taking a whole bunch of them, or Russell Wilson's all of a sudden working with the second team for more than like a few plays here or there, that's when you should take notice. That's when you should open your eyes and say, okay, this is something might be going on here. But if it's just 1 here or there, I wouldn't make too much of it. Be interesting to see how they kind of utilize Jameis Winston as well. But we'll get to that in a few minutes when we get to some of the position battles, right? Because the Giants do have 4 quarterbacks. Be interesting how they decide to handle that. But the other thing we're going to be watching all throughout training camp with the New York Giants is this defensive line. How good are they? And look, we know they have good players. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, whoever you think of him. I know some people take shots. Still a quality player, has a double-digit sack season on his resume. Okay? You're not a scrub if you have a double-digit sack season on your resume. Abdul Carter, number 3 overall pick. In the spring, looked like, he could be a dominant player in this league. Dexter Lawrence in the middle, throw in Chauncey Golston. This is a unit, pass rush-wise, specifically, that looks like it could do a lot of damage. And things will be tilted in their favor throughout the summer. Keep that in mind. The Giants are probably going to bring Andrew Thomas, their stud left tackle, along very slowly this summer. Very slowly. So you're going to see James Hudson at left tackle with the first team. Okay? James Hudson struggled when he was at Cleveland when he started at left tackle. So if the Giants' offensive line as it started the season was James Hudson at left tackle, John Runyon Jr. at left guard, John Michael Schmitz at center, Greg Van Roten at right guard, and Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle, that would be a troubling offensive line. They'd be a below-average offensive line. So this defensive line should feast on that this summer. Right? You'll see other people slide in and get opportunities, especially at that right guard spot. Get to that in a few minutes. but set up for the defensive line in this situation. And also, I say this all the time. The second and third string defensive ends and pass rushers, when they go against second and third team guards and tackles, it's a big mismatch. Like, because the second team defensive end could be Abdul Carter, or it could be a guy who Chauncey Golston, who these are guys who are part of the mix and they're pass rush specialists, but because they're not every down guys, they end up working with the second team primarily in training camp. So they're going against second team tackles. Second team tackles are guys you don't even want to play usually, right? You don't want them on the field. So you're basically having guys who could qualify almost as starters against second or third team tackles. And it's a complete mismatch, and they completely dominate. If your second string edge rusher doesn't dominate in training camp, it's eye-opening for your edge rusher. And I've said this in the past couple of years with the Giants because they had no depth at that position. And you notice that their second string edge rushers would kind of come and go, and you're like, if that's the case, that's actually bad in training camp. So if Abdul Carter's facing the second team left tackle or right tackle, Marcus Bowe, who's a rookie, or Stone Forsythe, like, he should dominate these guys. He should look like the best player in the NFL. And that's likely what's going to happen this summer. So keep an eye on the defensive line. We're going to look at the Giants defensive line, and you're going to get excited. And that's going to be the one thing you're leaving this summer with, this is my prediction, is that you are just hyped about that defensive front. You say, man, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, we can dominate with those guys. That's what you're going to be saying as a Giant fan. It is. So it's something to keep an eye on this summer. How dominant are those guys? And then we'll see kind of how it maybe is going to translate into the regular season. Because, and I've been saying this for a while now, it's not sexy, but their ability to stop the run, the nondescript free agent signings, Roy Robertson Harris and Jeremiah Ledbetter, and even the drafting of Darius Alexander in the middle, and Rakeem Nunez-Roches, those guys and their ability to help stop the run is going to dictate how good that front is. Because they cannot dominate if they're not in the opposition is not in third and long situations. And then the offense has to score some points, and the Giants have to be winning. That's when your defensive line feasts. So that'll be interesting to watch as well. Who are the other guys on the defensive line that are going to be a significant part of that mix? But the headliners are Jackson Dart in the quarterback position. You know, Russell Wilson is what he is at this point. One way or another, you can get hyped about it or not. He hasn't been the savior for the Seahawks at the end of his run there. For the Broncos, for the Steelers, it's really unlikely with his fourth team in 5 years he's the savior with the Giants. He might look good in practice. Look, you know, that's kind of where he could thrive. I wouldn't expect that to be what you should get super hyped over, right? That's your answer. That he's just going to turn it around at the end of his career and everything's going to be great. And all of a sudden, you know, that's the answer. No, it's going to be Jackson Dart. That's where your eyes need to be on. It needs to be on Jackson Dart and that defensive line. We'll follow that all throughout the summer. On to the next one. All right, let's go over some position battles to watch this summer. And I think when you're talking about the position battles for the Giants, the number one that I'm looking at is, and it's not super sexy because, you know, we're talking about right guard here and the names don't exactly blow you away, but it's an important spot for this team because this team needs to solidify their offensive line even more, right? They've been up and down. They've been actually bad for most of the past few years. They were okay, so that's pretty good early last year when they were healthy, but then as the season went along, injuries came by, it got, you know, harder and harder to say, okay, you know, the Giants are in good shape with their offensive line. Now we have Andrew Thomas at left tackle, who I talked about before. They're going to take him along very slowly. That's my expectation. Almost like see Andrew Thomas in sort of bubble wrap throughout the summer. But the right guard position, to me, is the number one position battle on the Giants. Can Evan Neal, right? Not just Evan Neal, but he's among a group, play well enough to earn himself a starting spot at right guard? It's not just Evan Neal, though. So Greg Van Roten is the incumbent there. Veteran, serviceable player, good dude. Actually is probably the leader, or one of the leaders at least, of that offensive line. Very respected guy. Has been in the league a while, has started a lot of games at actually a bunch of different positions. He was a starter at right guard last year. Played okay. Nothing great. Nothing spectacularly bad. He was okay. But there's an opportunity now. Can Evan Neal step in and earn that job? Can Jake Kubas, a guy they like, step in and earn that job? Aaron Stinney. I believe that is the one position that is fully, completely open. That whoever plays best will win that position. More so than any other position on the Giants roster. Right guard. That's the one. Now, when we're talking about who is going to get the best opportunity, it's going to be Van Roten and Evan Neal, in my opinion. They're going to be the two that get probably the best opportunity to earn that starting spot. But if Jake Kubas in his second season, undrafted guy, really impresses, I wouldn't be surprised to see them put him in there. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aaron Stinney get significant right guard reps. Not at all. Aaron Stinney, a veteran. He started before he started in Tampa. Last year, he was a veteran who served as a backup most of last year. And some of you are like, what about Marcus Bowe? The fifth-round pick out of Purdue. Marcus Bowe, it looks like, by the way, I should add Josh Azudu to that mix as well. If Josh Azudu comes in, I know a lot of people like, Josh Azudu, oh, come on with Josh Azudu already. But Josh Azudu has been playing out of position for several years. He's going to probably play guard and tackle throughout the summer. If he comes in and looks really good and plays well, he'll have an opportunity for that right guard job as well. Marcus Bowe, however, I think is primarily going to play tackle. Like most of his reps are going to be at tackle. And if most of your reps are at tackle, you're not all of a sudden going to start at guard. And if you are, it is something the Giants, the craziness the Giants have done with the offensive line in recent years and with Josh Azudu. But that's just going to be a recipe for failure. So I don't see that being the way they go. So you got GVR, Evan Neal, Jake Kubas, Aaron Stinney, Josh Azudu. 5 guys. Who steps up and stands out the most in training camp, to me, will earn that spot. That's the number one open position for the Giants. And there's a lot of guys I just named that have a chance for that spot. The other one I look at that intrigues me is the second cornerback spot opposite Paulson Adebo. Obviously, they signed Paulson Adebo. Nice, healthy contract. He's going to start. They didn't sign him for all that money for him to sit on the bench. Drew Phillips is a slot cornerback. He played really well as a rookie. That's his spot. He's going to start there. The second cornerback spot, clearly Deonte Banks is a guy they would like to step in there. He's a first-round pick from 2 years ago. Played well as rookie. Showed flashes, I should say, his rookie year. A really rough second year. And if you listen to the Giants and all the people in the organization, you could tell they didn't like his attitude and the way he worked. And the way he kind of just thought it was like he deserved to be that guy, the number one guy. And the success should just come. So they're looking for him to step up and have an attitude adjustment. I think that's really mostly what it was. The way they look at it, at least, from what you've heard from people. That his attitude last year of what he was in this league wasn't great. And he thought he was already there when the reality was he clearly wasn't. Clearly, definitely not as a CB1. Now he's got to prove he's at least a CB2. And Cordell Flott has played pretty well the last couple of years when he's had opportunities on that outside. So I think that if Cordell Flott really plays well this summer, it's possible. It's not out of the realm of possibilities that Cordell Flott usurps Deonte Banks and ends up as that starting cornerback. Now, Deonte Banks is going to have every advantage. He's going to be the guy that probably starts with the first team defense. And if he even shows flashes, he'll probably be the starter. But he should watch his back. Cordell Flott is there and capable of starting in this league as a cornerback too. So I don't think it's dead set and locked that Deonte Banks is going to start week 1. There are scenarios that I could see unfold where he struggles again this summer. or Cordell Flott just plays great this summer. And the Giants say, we're going to play our two best guys on the outside, and it's not Deonte Banks. He's the favorite, don't get me wrong. Clear-cut favorite, but it's not a slam dunk, my opinion. We'll see how training camp starts and begins. And it'll be interesting to see how much, if any, Cordell Flott works in with that first team early in camp. Other positions that I talked about defensive line. I shouldn't say tackle. Defensive line spot. So you got Dexter Lawrence in the middle. He's the nose tackle. Who are the two ends in the 3-4? Right? Is it Darius Alexander, the third-round pick? More of like a slasher get-upfield guy. He might be used more on pass rush situations, especially early on. Is it Jeremiah Ledbetter? Is it Roy Robertson Harris? Is it, Nacho, Raheem Nunez-Roches? Is he automatically one of the starters next to Dexter Lawrence? These are all things I'm going to be keeping an eye on, and you should be keeping an eye on as well. And I think it'll vary by base defense package, run defense versus, when you're nickel and pass defense. Where does Elijah Chapman fit in? Probably more in pass rush situations. Again, do DJ Davidson and Jordan Riley have any shot, or did they kind of blow that the last couple of years and not play well enough or do enough to say we feel confident with those guys? I don't think they're going to end up a starter, but you never know. I think more than likely on base downs, running downs, you're looking at Roy Robertson Harris, Jeremiah Ledbetter, and Raheem Nunez-Roches, and two of those three guys will be the starters on rundowns. Pass downs, you'll see a lot of different people thrown in that mix. Chauncey Golston even as an edge rusher. We even saw Abdul Carter at times in the spring move inside. So there'll be a lot of different combinations on the inside when it comes to passing downs. But that is for sure a position to watch. The other one I'm looking at is the quarterback position. Always is. But how do they handle reps? I'm pretty sure it's going to be Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, and then Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito thrown in a bunch of other spots. But it is interesting to see because the Giants, remember, they signed Winston and Wilson before they drafted Jackson Dart. So if Tommy DeVito has a strong summer, it's possible. There are teams out there. Look at the Tennessee Titans already. The New Orleans Saints, Cam Jordan clamored for Jameis Winston. If the Giants feel confident enough, hey, Tommy DeVito played pretty well this summer. Russell Wilson's our starter. If something happens to Russell Wilson and we need to put Tommy DeVito in for a game or two, do we feel comfortable enough to do that? Right? Then, Jameis Winston could become expendable. So I'm interested to see how they handle Jameis Winston this summer and Tommy DeVito. Does Tommy DeVito now get a real shot to kind of stick on the roster and get that third quarterback spot and say, hey, you know what? If we can get anything for Jameis Winston, we will do it. Now, Jackson Dart, it's all going to be all about his development, his growth. So it's the competition is going to be tilted in his favor. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. And for good reason. You're building for him. He's the future. So get him as many first-team snaps. But I don't see him really competing with Russell Wilson for the starting job. And I know there's some people out there say he should start right away. Some people say he should sit the whole season. I think in an ideal world, the Giants would like to win games with Russell Wilson and not have to play Jackson Dart this season. Is that realistic that it's going to happen? They have a super tough schedule. Probably not. We're going to see Jackson Dart at some point. It's just a matter of when, not if. But the QB competition is sort of going to be at the back end with Tommy DeVito and Jameis Winston. Now, Jameis Winston is a more proven quarterback, and he's insurance in case something happens to Russell Wilson. But we're talking about for later on down the line, towards the end of the summer. So I'm interested to see that. And the other one, it's not really a competition, but it's Jalen Hyatt. See if he can work his way into the mix, right? It's Malik Neighbors as the starting outside receiver with Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot. How well does Jalen Hyatt play? This is the competition. Does he play well enough where they said we have to find him ways to get in that mix? Remember last spring, he was with the starters ahead of Slayton for a long time. And all of a sudden, flipped it up. Everything changed. And then Jalen Hyatt came an afterthought. 70-something yards, 72 yards the entire season. Like total afterthought. Not even part of the mix. So he gained some weight. Came in with a different attitude this year from what I've been told. Let's see what the Giants can get out of him. And let's see what they think of him. How about that this summer? We're going to find out because in the spring, yeah, he looked great. Malik Neighbors wasn't on the field. What happens when Malik Neighbors comes back and Darius Slayton's there and Wan'Dale Robinson's there? Will they find ways to get Jalen Hyatt on the field? And he has to earn that this summer. So it'll be very interesting to watch that wide receiver situation throughout the summer. On to the next one. All right, let's wrap this up a little quick. Jordan on the beat. This is where I tell you what it's like to cover the Giants, work for ESPN, or cover the NFL in general. It was just a little downtime, a little lull. Took a couple of weeks off. Had a conference, a summit up in Bristol, Connecticut for ESPN. So the podcast took a few weeks break, but now we're ramping it up. Every week we're going to be here, so make sure to follow Breaking Big Blue on all your anywhere you can get your podcasts. Also here on YouTube if you're watching this video right here. So we're trying to come at you in all different directions. I'll be providing daily updates as well as much as possible. So follow me on all social platforms. Jordan Raanan ESPN. That's Raanan. Finish up here with a little quick Jordan on the beat. This is what I tell you what it's like. Obviously, I said before, to cover the Giants, work for ESPN, or cover the NFL in general. I'm going to give you a quick lay of the land of what a Giants day is going to be like and when you can kind of expect your Giants news and information coming out. So generally, practice is going to be at 10 a.m. throughout the summer and I think even into the season. So 10 to 12 is about when practice is. Brian Daboll is going to speak, for the most part, most days, before practice. So 9:30 a.m., around 9:30 a.m., you get sort of your injury updates. I'd say that with air quotes because his updates are minimal, mostly at best. But you get the point. Well, the big news will come out probably most mornings around 9:30, 9:45. Practice starts at 10, ends at 12. Players will talk after that. So, around 12:30, 1 o'clock, all the player interviews will be going on or finished by then. So by like 1, 2 o'clock, they'll be done for the day. So that's sort of the daily schedule. And if you're showing up to training camp and you're coming to a training camp practice, it starts at 10. Make sure to be there a little bit before 10. But the early part of practice, you have to remember it is slower. The better parts of practice are later. So don't kill yourself to get there super early. I know there'll be a big line, especially early in camp or the big days of joint practice. The beginning of practice is stretching. And I guess people, if you've never been to a practice, you want to see all these things. But when you've been there every day, it kind of becomes repetition, routine, and could be a little boring. They do stretching early and then they do individual drills, which for viewing purposes can sometimes be a little blah. It's the live drills that you come there to see, and that's really the second half of practice. So if that's what you're looking for, there's an idea there. You don't need to get there at 7 a.m. and wait on that huge line and, be there for when they're stretching. Unless you want to be there for when they're stretching. And after practice is when they do autographs, and it's super fan-friendly. There's legends that are usually there at training camp. I didn't see the list of guys that are there, but there's usually a pretty solid list of Giants legends that come out for training camp and sign autographs, and the players are good with, signing for all children too. A little more difficult for adults because, let's be honest, they don't want people that show up for, are doing it to make money and then go sell it on eBay, come and ask for 10 autographs from Malik Neighbors. I'm just using Malik Neighbors as an example because he's probably the number one most popular Giant right now. Easily, actually, no problem. Not even close on that front. So that's the plan. That's the schedule. The schedule at time changes. There are some afternoon practices as the summer goes on. We'll get to that later on in the summer. I'll mention it. But for the most part, the Giants seem to be are going to practice at around 10 a.m. So morning type practices. Avoid, I guess, the afternoon heat because that is kind of when it's hottest for the most part throughout the summer. 2, 3, 4 o'clock-ish. But it'll still be pretty hot at Giants practice. The humidity here in New Jersey this summer has been pretty crazy. So if it's anything like that for training camp, it's going to be a hot training camp. Come prepared. Make sure to hydrate. I'll be hydrating. You'll catch me on the sideline. I'll be there. Say hello. You're listening to Breaking Big Blue. I'm Jordan Ranan. Remember, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Breaking Big Blue. It's available on all podcast platforms, whether it's Spotify, Apple, YouTube. You know where to find me. See you next time.